Good evening, everyone. As most of you have attended our FDPs on IKS, Indian Knowledge Systems, and cinema. So, IKS FDP I used to do with Dr. Nidhi Sendurnikar, and cinema FDP with Mr. Rochak Saxena, who is going to be Dr. Rochak Saxena very soon. So in IKS, we always talked about implementing or intersect the Indian knowledge system with the stream that you belong to. So we used to tell to the participants that intersect Indian knowledge system with the stream that you belong to. Say for example, economics, science stream, commerce, management, anything. And then we realized that we also should intersect the Indian knowledge system with cinema as well, and that is how the idea of combining both these streams together came. And today we are with you, we are in front of you with this idea. So this is the first time that we are conducting IKS and Indian cinema FDP together. Uh, Hello and good evening, everyone, again. And let's begin the journey to understand the Indian knowledge system and the Indian cinema separately, and then we will also understand it in a combined manner too. So, how do we define Indian knowledge system? Any one of you would like to answer? What is Indian knowledge system? In front of you, there is a slide, but still, what is your understanding of Indian knowledge system? Is there anyone who wants to answer?
Good
Okay,
evening. May I?
please, ma'am.
I'm Dr. Maushmi Roy Chaudhary from Bindeshwari Baghel Government College, Kumhari. The Indian knowledge system, as far as I understand, is bringing the old tradition and merging with the modern scenario. Old knowledge with the modern scenario.
Very true, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anybody?
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Anyone else would like to comment?
Hi, this is Sabbat
Yes,
Kumar.
yes.
So, the holistic understanding of Indian traditional knowledge and to understand the contemporary uh, knowledge and technologies, combining of both traditional and contemporary is called as an Indian knowledge systems.
Very true. Very true. So, in all these 6 days, what we are going to do is to explore the connection between the two deep-rooted aspects of Indian culture. Indian knowledge system, that is one, and second one is Indian cinema. And if we talk about Indian knowledge system, then we know that it represents India's intellectual and philosophical tradition. Simply, right? Intellectual and philosophical tradition. And if we talk about Indian cinema, then we also know that Indian cinema serves as a medium to narrate stories that have shaped our collective consciousness, right? And cinema is the seventh art. If we consider the Western way of thinking, then there are six arts. There are six arts which are considered as the uh, art forms which are considered as art, and cinema is considered as the seventh art. But when we discuss about the Indian knowledge system, then we talk about 64 kala, 64 kala, right? So these kalas also include so many crafts, and even several art is like very interesting. Say for example, the art of the art of stealing something, right? Art of flowering the hair, even art of preparing the bed is also considered as an art form in Indian knowledge system. So there are 64 kala, and we must have heard that Krishna used to be called as the master of all the 64 arts, right? So in this FDP, we are going to understand the connection. If there can be a connection between Indian knowledge system and the Indian cinema, we are going to we are going to understand that connection. And if we talk about the objective of these 6 days FDP, then we can say that we want to understand the theoretical background of IKS, theoretical background that IKS proposes, right? Then how IKS concepts are embedded into the films that we watch in Indian cinema, right? And we are going to also discuss about the case studies of the films which has the elements from the Indian knowledge system. And you must be knowing that Rochak sir is having vast knowledge of the films. He remembers names, lot of names, even all the artists, and he can give you 5, 10, 15 examples in anything. So Rochak sir is going to discuss about the various case studies during his sessions, right? So this is what it is. IKS is the tradition of India in which we discuss about the knowledge part and the, I mean, intellectual part and the philosophical part of India. And we have various traditions. Say, for example, we have if we discuss about the scriptures, then we know that we have Ved, we have Upanishad, and we have Smritis. And apart from that, there are several other texts as well. But basically, these are the texts: Ved, Upanishad, and Smritis. Then, if we talk about the scientific disciplines of Indian knowledge, then we know that we have Ayurveda, we have astronomy, we have mathematics, and we have yoga as well, right? And if we talk about the aesthetic traditions of India, then we have Natya Shastra, which is going to be very crucial for us when we discuss about the Indian cinema. So Natya Shastra is there. Similarly, we have Sangeet Shastra as well, right? So in aesthetic traditions, we have these two treatises. Then if we talk about the um, language part, the communication part, the grammar part, then we have Panini, who has given the who has given us the Astadhyayi, right? We must have heard about it, Panini's Astadhyayi, in which we have all sort of science of the language, right? So this is the entire we can say that knowledge samput that we have in Ved, Upanishad. Then we have astronomy, Natya Shastra. All these things are there with us, right? So but in short, if we want to say that what IKS offers to us, then we can say that IKS offers to us the holistic, empirical, and the experiential learning knowledge base. That is what IKS offers to us. And if we talk about the Ayurveda and yoga, then we know that these are the traditional sciences. And as we also know that it is recognized now globally for its empirical value. The world wants to learn more and more about the traditional science of India, right? And if we talk about the cinematic techniques of Indian cinema, then we will find out that it is also rooted in IKS, and IKS has influenced the Indian cinema, and we also know that Indian cinema has influenced the global filmmaking scenarios, right? So this is what IKS is all about. Now let's discuss about the Indian cinema. What is Indian cinema? Is there anyone who wants to answer? Similarly, to I have asked about the IKS. Then now it's time to ask about the cinema. What is cinema? Is there anyone? Please.
Cinema is a one kind of method it is used to it developed in late 19th century. And cinema is Indian cinema means is a making of movies in with using of the Indian languages. Now, actually, most of the times we call as the Indian cinema, but we need to call this as a Indian cinemas because of we have the Bollywood cinema, we have the Telugu cinema, we have Kannada cinema, we have Malayalam cinema, we have number of cinemas in India. So most of the times we call it as a unique identity as Indian cinema.
Very true, very true. Someone has written about the representation in cinema. What was that? Film is a representation of society. Durba Banerjee has written. True. Anybody else? Last answer. Cinema is a telling a story through visuals, through emotions. Prashant Misraji, yes, please.
Yes, sir. It is a blend of art and technology to reflect culture, history, and human experiences.
Very true, very true. So, if we discuss about the cinema as an art form, then we can say we know that art is representation of life, and if we give the definition, the shortest definition of cinema, then we can say that it is visual storytelling. Visual storytelling. So, again, if we dissect all these three words, visual, story, and telling, then visual and telling, that is audio visual, and with the use of audio and visual, what we are going to communicate, that is story is fiction, we all know. It can be based on reality, but basically it is a fiction, it is a story, right? So this is the definition of cinema, simplest definition. But we have also, a large discussion, a discussion which is carried through decades and decades, whether cinema is for the entertainment or cinema is for the message. It is a medium to teach something. This is the discussion. But when it comes to the Indian cinema, we can say that it is not just the entertainment, but it is also the reflection of the rich Indian culture, even the history and the tradition, right? So there are three elements which are very important when it comes to the Indian cinema. One is culture, second one is history, and third one is the tradition. So cinema is nothing but a device to tell the storytelling. It is a storytelling technique which is more important, and someone has answered that it is not just about the art, but technology is also there. So it is, but the basically cinema is derived from the tradition, the folk tradition, the oral tradition. We are also going to talk about Shruti and Smriti parampara of Indian knowledge system, and we are going to connect it with cinema as well. So folk tradition is there, oral tradition is there, and classical tradition is also there, which we can find in Indian cinema, which is blended with technology part, right? So it is a storytelling technique, and we can find the archetypes of Indian epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata in so many films. We can find out the similar stories which were there in Mahabharata or in Ramayana. We can find those stories even today with new clothes, with new characters, but the same sort of stories are there with us, which we can say that which are inspired from Ramayana and Mahabharata, the great two Indian epics, right? So we have a very long tradition of storytelling. We are also going to discuss about it, and that is carried forward in the medium of cinema as well. So that is about the Indian cinema. And now let's talk about the theoretical foundation of IKS, and then we are also going to discuss the foundation of cinema as well. So basically, as we all know that we are an oral tradition, right? Because we always believed we didn't have the means to store the stories that we had. So we always believed in Shruti Parampara. Shruti is, listening, and Smriti Parampara. Smriti is, we know that Smriti is memory, remembrance part, right? So, the knowledge, the stories were passed through these two techniques, Shruti Parampara and the Smriti Parampara. So, in all the texts, we find that Shruti and Smriti Parampara there in Indian knowledge system. Similarly, we have some other, philosophical schools, which we call it as darshan, right? Darshana. So, which are that? First one is Nyay. Nyay is logic. Then we have Vaisheshiki, that is the science of atomism. Then we have Sankhya Parampara. Uh, we are going to take your question, Munjaji. Just give me 2 minutes. Then we have Sankhya Parampara. Sankhya is duality, dualism, right? The existence of two together. Then we have Yoga Parampara or Yoga philosophical school. That is, Yoga is the science of body and the mind. Then we have Parampara or the school, Mimamsa school, which talked about the rituals and its interpretations, right? Then we have Vedanta, which is the spiritual or the knowledge of the soul, right? So we are also going to discuss about the Rus theory, right? In detail. So I am not touching this Rus theory right now. And now I can take your question. Who has raised the hand? Please ask your question. Was it by mistake? I think so. Let's move further. And now let's discuss about the theoretical foundation. The way we discussed about the theoretical foundation of Indian knowledge system. Now let's talk about the theoretical foundation of Indian cinema. Again, we are going to discuss it in the reference of the laying foundation of IKS only. So, in Indian cinema, we see the influence of Natya Shastra in the films of India. What is Natya Shastra? This is the text given by great Bharat Muni, and he is not Bharat Maharaja Raja. He is not that Bharat. Another Bharat Rishi. Bharat Muni, who was there in second century BCE. That is what we believe, that his time was second century BCE, and he has given his text on drama, dance, and music. So Natya Shastra is about, it is a treatise on dance, drama, and music, right? And we see the elements of Natya Shastra in various films. Rochak sir is going to give you detailed list of films which has influence of Natya Shastra. And in Natya Shastra, there are two, three very important things which we need to understand. So let's go deep into the part of Natya Shastra, and just give me a moment and let's discuss about Natya Shastra. So Natya Shastra has concept of nine bhav, that is nine, Natya Shastra has nine ras. Just a moment, I'm giving you the list of nine rasas before I move further.
Actually, I'll be covering that in my session, like the complete
Okay,
list and everything that comes under it. So even if you don't, I mean, if you want to proceed, you may.
okay.
Yeah.
I was about to paste that nine
Do that,
rasas,
do that.
but
That's okay. That's okay. You may paste it.
that's fine. uh,
I mean, they
Sorry.
will have a context. Even if you're pasting, they will have a context. So that's fine.
Okay, fine. So let's know something about the Natya Shastra, and I'm also going to give you the list of those nine rasas. There are actually in Natya Shastra there are actually 36 chapters, and it has 6,000 verses. So these the entire rules or entire guidelines of uh, drama, dance, and music is given into the 6,000 verses, right? And um, it talks about Abhinay. Abhinay is acting. Then it talks about Nritya, that is dance. It talks about music, that is Gandharva. And it talks about the stage design, what should be the setup, right? And if we similarly look at the discussion of cinema, then mezzoscene is there. I'm writing that term. Some of you might have not heard about this term, mezzoscene. Uh, Forgive me about that caps lock part. That is mezzoscene. So mezzoscene is the setup, right? So stage design is there, and it is called as rang. Rang is what is called in Natya Shastra. It is called as rang. Then we have apart from stage design, everything about the makeup part, costume part, and how the audience should behave when the drama, dance, or music is being performed. It is also there in those 6,000 slokas, right? And as I was mentioning about nine ras, Mr. Rochak is going to discuss elaborately on it. But those nine ras are love. First one is love, that is Sringar ras. Then it has Hashya ras, that is humor. Then it has Karunaras, that is compassion. Then it has Rodra Roop, that is anger. Then it has Veeraras, that is heroism, right? Then it has Bhayanakaras, that is fear. Then it has the Bibhatsaras. See, this is very interesting. Even Bharat Muni discusses about Bibhatsaras as well, right? And in so many films or in so many art forms, we see these bibats being performed or presented. So bibats is disgust, that is also a ras. Then there is adbhut ras, that is the sense of wonder ras, that is what we can say. Then it has santi, that is peace, is also sata, is also, it is called sata as well, and it is called as santi as well, that is peace part, right? And uh, the text of Natya Shastra also gives us different sorts of acting. I mean, there are several types of acting as well, which are mentioned in Natya Shastra. Say, for example, first one is Angika Abhinay. That is Abhinay done with the Ang. That is the physical expression or the gestures of the actors. It is there in the Angika Abhinay. Then we have Vachika Abhinay. Vachika Abhinay is the verbal expression or the dialogue part or the speech part is there in the Vachika Abhinay. Then we have Aharya Abhinay, that is costume, makeup, and the properties which are there on the stage, right? Even properties are there in cinema as well, in theaters as well. And then there is Satvik Abhinay, the acting which is emotional, and it is done through the inner emotion or inner passion, the acting which arises from the inner strength or inner feelings, that is so these are the four actually um, Abhinay part which is there in the Natya Shastra. And I'm stopping myself here so that Rochak sir can discuss about these all these aspects with examples. Right? He will give you the examples of various films. Now let's discuss about the evolution of the Indian cinema. And you must have heard that there are several films especially in first 3 or 4 decades. We have stories of different saints. We have stories of mythology. All these stories were dominant because people were aware about all these stories. Say, for example, Hanuman was the character which was portrayed several times, right? Even if we discuss about the first film of Indian cinema, that is a silent film by Dada Saheb Phalke, then the title itself says Raja Harishchandra, right? And Raja, as we also know, that Raja Harishchandra is again a character which comes from the Indian mythology, right? Who was considered as the person of truth, Raja Harishchandra, right? So, several mythological and devotional films we find in the first 3 decades, especially first 3 decades, we find all these stories, and then we have also, historical films and based on the ancient text. Say, for example, Tulsidas text, Chanakya's text. They were part of the cinema, and in the beginning era especially, all these indigenous stories were part of cinemas first 3 decades. And uh, and if we even look at, say for example, Bahubali today, then we can say that Bahubali again comes from a tradition of the Indian ancient knowledge. Because if we look at the temple history of India, then we can say there are several similar kind of plots there in our Indian tradition, right? So this is the evolution of Indian cinema, which has started from the stories of our saints, our god and goddesses, and slowly it has come to the societal part, the moral part, the films of 1940s, 50s, and 60s. Then you will find the stories of jamindars, the slaves, all these stories we can find during those decades. And from 70s onwards and till 2024, we say that now we have developed a new way of telling the same stories again, which are there in our mind, our soul. Those archetypes which are there, the characters which we know, these characters are represented again and again, but with the modern and contemporary look and feel, we can say. uh, so this is the history of the Indian cinema, if we look at it like this way. And Rochak sir, would you like to pitch in here with the evolution part of Indian cinema for 2 3 4 minutes?
Yeah, so you have rightly pointed. I have always believed that Indian cinema, the way it has evolved, it has always got to do with how society at that particular time functioned. So when we say that does cinema inspire from society or society inspires from cinema, I always feel that whatever changes, economic changes or political changes we have witnessed over the years in our country, they have been reflected in the times that cinema were made in. So, for example, as you mentioned about the early cinema of India, they were heavily inspired by mythological stories because number one, there were not many technological advancements that we had. So, the makers at that time particularly thought that at least we have some stories ready, wherein the audiences automatically connect. So the mythological stories, Lanka Dahan, stories of Ramayana, stories of Mahabharat, as you mentioned, Raja Harishchandra. So if you look at the silent cinema era of India, uh, more than 90% of the films were directly taken from the mythological stories, because at least the makers did not have to think of the stories that way. uh, as time as time passed, as India gained its freedom, uh, we were trying to stand on our own feet. Of course, Indian culture, Indian roots have been very ancient, to say. But then after the Britishers left India, we were left with nothing in terms of the finances, in terms of the economics that we had. So we were trying to build a whole new nation, and wherein these stories of migration from villages to cities, people migrating to bigger cities like Kolkata or Delhi. So the cinema of Satyajit Ray reflected these hardships. If you look at Pather Panchali, the trilogy, the Apu trilogy, it talks about how a certain filmmaker, how a certain character migrates from villages to cities for a better lifestyle. And that was the times of those times. Here, I would particularly like to mention one film by Satyajit Ray, which is Devi, that stars Sharmila Tagore. Now, Devi is a film wherein that is based on some superstition of one man who starts believing that his daughter-in-law is the is the goddess herself. So he starts worshipping his daughter-in-law. Now, when he starts worshipping the daughter-in-law, the entire village also starts believing that she is not just a regular woman, she is a goddess herself. So the entire village there comes and reveres her, that particular woman as goddess, as the Devi. But what this brings to that particular woman, that how this particular reverence, how this particular respect affects the woman's psyche, affects woman's mental health, is something to be very deep rooted in our culture, in the rural backdrop of those times. And that is something that we also ought to understand, that when you are making a film deeply rooted in the context. Today we talk about Malayalam cinema, how Malayalam cinema works wonders. They have only been doing this particular thing, that they have been incorporating their own culture in the kind of modern storytelling. And that's what Satyajit Ray at that time, Tapan Sinha, Ritvik Ghatak, all these people actually managed to do that. And that is something that we ought to understand. All those parallel cinema movement that started, with Sham Benegal, Govind Nilani, Saeed Akhtar Mirza, Mani Kaul, all these filmmakers, they gave a certain voice to the Indian culture, and that is something that has always been reflected in the way the films have been made. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Rochak sir. So, this is about the Indian cinema that started in the 1913 and till today, 2024. Um, Now let's discuss IKS in the context of media and cinema. But again, I'm not going to talk more about the Natya Shastra or Navras part, because Rochak sir is going to discuss about it. But I want to discuss about the Sutradhar as the storyteller part, right? Which was not Sutradhar is mentioned in the Natya Shastra. So let's understand who is the Sutradhar. If we talk about the life itself, then we believe that the God has created this world, and we are kind of our Father is God. We have born from the Almighty, right? Similar way, if we talk about the theater, then the person who has created this sansar in terms of that story, he is called as the Sutradhar. And let's discuss about the cinema part. Then in cinema, we discuss about the director. Cinema is considered as the director's medium. And if we discuss about the television part, then it is considered as, is there anyone who wants to answer? The television is the medium of who? Is there anyone? Rochak sir, there are participants, right? I can't see.
Yes, there are participants.
Okay. So, is there anyone who wants to answer? Television is the medium of whom?
Munja ji has raised a hand. Munja
Please,
ji.
please.
Yes, Munja ji. Munja.
Universe Sivai has written narrator. Okay, fine. So, television is believed as the medium of the writer, and cinema is believed as the medium of the director. So, here, director is nothing, is nobody but the narrator who was there in the Natya Shastra of Bharat Muni, who has created this sansar, this story, right? Why we call it sansar? Because like life, you see people there, you see action there, and you see struggles of life. The entire span of life is not every time entire span, but one fragment of that span is there in the film. So that is why we are calling it the sansar. So it is created by the director, and he is the sutradhar. So, Rochak sir is going to discuss more about Sutradhar part as well, apart from that Ras part. But Sutradhar is the person who has created this entire sansar, right? So, as I discussed earlier, that India has basically oral tradition. Now let's understand oral part. Oral part comes to the your audio part, your listening part, and then we have also the visual tradition as well. If we look at the cave paintings of the ancient people, now cave painting part, I mean, cave painting is there in all the tradition. So it is not about only India, but these are the visual which were there. No doubt we have got the motion in visual from the 20th century only, but visual was there, and we also know that we had this oral tradition. So oral and this visual tradition, which were combined together with the help of technology, has become cinema. Cinema is nothing but the oral part, visual part, and the technology parts, right? So that Shruti part is there, Darshan Shastra, that is Darshan, not Shastra, then Darshan becomes philosophy. So Darshan, that seeing part is also there, and we see it in our Indian storytelling as well, right? So again, Natya Shastra part is there, and I'm not going to discuss more about the Natya Shastra part, but let's understand that the mythological stories which India brought in the first 3 4 decades, they were blockbuster films. Even today, there are many persons who know about Ramayana and Mahabharat because of the serials made by Raman Sagar, even Sri Krishna and Krishna serial and other serials, right? So they were blockbusters. Even when the when we faced COVID, Ramayana and Mahabharata were again telecast by Doordarshan, and they reached to the highest viewing records as well. Why these mythological stories became blockbusters, and people of India celebrated those stories? Because those stories were like in our blood, those stories were there in our soul only. So we find that there are several films, even in modern cinema, that Ramayana and Mahabharat subplots are adapted in those films, and they are like celebrated films, right? Even if we talk about the Bahubali, if we talk about the Kantara, then these are the films which has roots in our ancient tradition, the knowledge part, right? Uh, Rash and Bhav, Ras and Bhav. We are not going to discuss more about it. And all these are the film's name, and Rochak sir will explain you in elaborately how those films have the Indian knowledge, traditional knowledge part is there on in all these films. Again, I talked about Ramayana and Mahabharata, over the two great epics of India, and the Puran. And we see that Bahubali's name is there, and we have several films on our saints and gurus. I also discussed about it, and in if now if we talk about the film education, then again. What should I explain? Arya Ayappan ji.
Uh, Good evening. Sir, I
Yes,
had one doubt. You spoke about the fact that film is a director's medium while the television is a story writer's. So could you just clarify that, please?
sure. Actually, no one was answering, so I skipped that part. See, television is a huge production part, and it is performed mostly with one or two or three locations. So, very less number of locations are there, very less number of characters are there, and very lack of action is also there. I mean, the visuals can't go far away, actions can't go far away. because the requirement of production is such that the continuous shooting should go on. So more or less, the whatever writer writes, the performers, the actors perform on the one place only, and writer is needed and the performers are needed. And as we all know, that technology part has to be there. So cameraman is needed, lightmen are needed, editors are needed, this is fine. But apart from that, there is no such aesthetic part which needs to be taken care, and that is why no as such director is required. I mean, there is a director, but his role is not that much greater. So whatever a writer writes, it actually gets translated in visuals, and it is served instantly. So
I
directors,
would like to add to it, sir. I
please,
would like to
please,
add to
please,
it also.
please, please.
Because a TV serial, a TV production is a much longer production, especially in India. If you look at Pakistani shows, they are ending in about 25 to 30 episodes. But in India, particularly, we have 100, 500, 1,000 episodes of a show. So in such situations, the characters cannot go under transformation very easily. So once you have an actress, once you have an actor, once you have a supporting cast, you cannot make them transform their characters. They cannot go on a character's journey every now and then. So because their journey is also similar to what happened in the first episode, you set them up. Right? This is the good person. This is the bad person. In a TV show, you will very rarely see a bad person transforming into a good one, or a good person transforming into a bad one, because that's how the trajectory is in a way. So in particularly TV serials, as Vikas sir mentioned, you cannot focus on metaphors, you cannot focus on vision that way. Movies, cinema requires that vision. Cinema requires actors to be placed in a certain manner, actors to behave in a certain manner, and that's where the difference lies.
True.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, Rochak. Even we can talk about the conflict part as well. If we look at the films or the web series, shorter one, then you will find that there is only one or two major conflict in the protagonist's part, right? And that conflict is stretched or lived for a longer period of time, right? But in TV serials, you will find that conflict part is smaller. So there comes a problem, a little problem, which is going to be resolved in the same episode only, in the same episode of 24 minutes only, or the 56 minutes episode. So one small problem which is being resolved in the same episode, it is there. And in cinema, in film, we see that one conflict is there which is traced, and the entire story is woven around that conflict part, where director is needed, and small problem part, the writer is needed more. This is what we can also say. So we have reached to 7:50, and with a question, I would like to end my part, and then we can go for the discussion or the comments of yours. So this is the question. In fact, there are several questions. So how can IKS be integrated into modern cinema studies? This is what I wanted to ask. This is what I wanted. I mean, in my entire session, I tried to explain about it. Then how can cinema be integrated into IKS? IKS, or how can IKS be integrated into academics? We all are teachers here, right? So how can IKS be integrated into academics? That is also a question. And if we want to go for the larger question, larger than life question, then we can say, how can IKS be integrated into life? I would like to listen to you all. Thank you.